Hi, guys. How are you this morning? I'm so shocked to see everyone in the chat so early, but we had to do this early because we really wanted to bring Ronald back to catch us up on all of the stuff that's going on with the Girardi case. Now, you guys know I've been out of commission for a month, and so it's absolutely overwhelming what could happen in a month. Freddie, you have your list of questions ready, right?
Exactly.
Take it from here. Hi, Ronald. I wanted to say good morning. I'm sorry, I forgot that. Good morning,
Good
Ronald.
morning to both of you. Very excited again to be here. One of my favorite shows ever on this
Thank you
on this
so
platform.
much for showing up. I really appreciate it. Go ahead, Freddie.
Well, it's always good to have you here, Ronald. So we've got quite a bit to catch up on since you were last here. So my first question is for the motion for the turning over of his real estate. Why and why weren't the rules regarding Tom vacating the premises made a lot stricter in the first place?
Oh, that's great.
Are you talking about the agreement that he made with the trustee to show the property, or now the motion to sell the property with the settlement with the Rugamese creditors?
No, I'm talking about the first one, the agreement of showing the property.
Yeah, okay. So what happened is, just to give the viewers some background, is he initially was ignoring his own personal trustee, that's Jason Rund, and Rund got upset, and he filed a motion basically saying, I'm going to kick you out of your house. He immediately responded through his temporary conservator and through his court-appointed counsel that, okay, look, guys, you can show the property on 48 hours notice. I'll stay out of everybody's way. And they've now filed a motion to employ a real estate broker. So that was a reaction by him just not responding and allowing them to do a walkthrough. And, they filed his schedules last night. That was big news. And he's valuing the property at $16,500,000, which I'm going to tell you guys right now, this is not North Beverly Hills. This is Pasadena. It's a very aggressive, optimistic value if you think he's getting $16.5 million for that house.
Wow.
Not to mention the amount of mortgage he's probably taken against that house as well.
Oh, yeah.
That's correct. And then the Rugamese lien from their judgment is basically taking up the rest of the equity. However, in order for that lien not to be contested, they've agreed to an 80-20 split with the estate. So the other victims and unsecured creditors that do not have a judgment lien that's attached to real estate will get 20% of those proceeds. But I'm still very dubious that there's going to be some large scale distribution as a result of that sale.
I think we all are.
Yeah.
What type of trouble could we expect to see David Lira and Keith Griffin in regard to how Edelson has sort of taken their opposition?
You're saying what type of opposition, or how can you just clarify that?
What is the type of opposition they're getting, and what are the updates on what type of trouble we could potentially see both of these former Girardi Keith employees get into for their involvement in this whole scheme?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a great question. There's a couple things going on with David Lira. Let me just focus on him first. That's Girardi's son-in-law. His daughter's name is Jacqueline Lira. Okay, so what's going on with him is he's still facing contempt in Chicago for that money. He's also a defendant in a lawsuit there, and he's a defendant in some lawsuits in California as well, because he takes the novel position that, hey, look, I'm just a W-2 employee. In fact, which just means in English, he's just working for Girardi. I don't have any ownership. I'm not in charge. In fact, he filed a claim in the bankruptcy court in the Girardi Erika estate saying that he wants $150,000 in legal fees reimbursed. And his defense has always been, hey, I can't sue Girardi and Erika to pay for any damages on what's called an indemnity claim because they're in bankruptcy. And that's kind of a weak position because, of course, he could sue after the fact, and now he's filed a claim which undermines his claim that he couldn't get a fair hearing because he can't bring in the relevant cross defendants. So basically, what he's doing now is he's just trying to take the position that even though he was a signer on the trust account, and even though his wife was getting assigned settlement payments, which would be very odd if you're just an employee. Why would your wife get settlement payments? Which I posted on. I'm just an employee and I didn't do anything wrong. Okay, well, you know, he didn't do anything to help the people when they were not getting their payments. He didn't call the police or the state bar, to the best I'm aware of. So he's not someone that we would consider in the same sort of classification as Keith Griffin. Keith Griffin was a much lower employee on the totem pole, but still he was interfacing with clients. And this just goes back to the big issue. If this applies to everybody that's watching the show. If you're working for somebody and you know they are stealing from the customers or the clients, do you have a duty to report it? All right, that's really the simple issue. You don't need to be a lawyer to understand the golden rule. Yeah. I mean, obviously, if you're working for someone and they're stealing and you do nothing about it, there's something called willful blindness. And so it becomes a point where if you're telling the client, hey, don't worry, your settlement's coming through soon, but you know Girardi has it and he's not turning over, that's kind of a lie. So these facts are going to come out. I can't tell you if Keith and David are 100% liable, but the other side, you know, on this litigation certainly believes they're culpable on a civil level for liability.
Yeah, you are. I mean, you have to say something, right?
So
I think so, because the problem is these are not employees like the janitor or the bookkeeper. These are attorney employees. They're held to a higher standard. Their license doesn't say, hey, by the way, if you're an employee, you got to be stupid. I mean, you're an attorney. You see the client's not getting the money and you're their attorney. It doesn't matter that you're working for someone else. Do you think one of my associates, if they saw us, I would tell them right away. In fact, I tell them all the time, if you see something wrong, tell me. If you see something you disagree with, tell me. If you don't tell me, then I'm not going to care. But there is no prejudice to report any operational aspect that you think is not in the best interest of the client.
Yeah.
And the reason why a good law firm does that is because if something does go wrong, they would then be able to tell the other side or the investigating agency, we have an open policy. We like our employees to complain if they see something wrong, and there's no prejudice because you may miss something. You don't know. You can't have your eyes in every facet of an organization, just like Girardi didn't have his eyes, and these people could have easily done something about it.
Yeah.
But we know that surely that people like David Lira will receive some form of punishment in regards to the likes of how client money was paid to spouses' wives. That is illegal in law practice. So
it's illegal if you share fees. Believe it or not, the judge approved it because they didn't clue him into the ethical issues. And it was a couple years ago. He may get lucky on the one I exposed because it was past the statute of limitations for certain things. But I don't think he's going to get out of this. By the way, he's tried to avoid discovery at every turn. So it's not like he's saying, hey, I'm here, depose me, and it's an open book. Yeah. He's tried to avoid all scrutiny with procedural defenses, which just, you know, he's entitled to do that, but he's not acting like somebody that has nothing to hide, in my opinion.
And surely that's not helping his case either.
Well, he has a very good lawyer that's been around the block. She's represented many judges in judicial prosecutions, you know, to get them removed from the bench. So she's doing what she needs to do. And look, I'm not going to question a lawyer's defense. Everybody's entitled to the defense that they're entitled to. But again, as I've said this, people sometimes get this so mixed up. If I was like Erika Girardi and I knew my husband did this, I'd be telling everyone, hey, here's everything I have, everything I know, everything I've received. I didn't do anything wrong. Look, he handled everything. I'm an open book, consent to search all my accounts. Then what would you say? You wouldn't even have people criticizing her. I mean, but instead, you know, you have the complete opposite. I just want my $600,000 exemption on a house that I'm not even on the title.
We're going to get onto that in a bit because
okay,
quite
no
a lot there. So I wanted to move on to the paperwork that was submitted regarding this dementia diagnosis. How can the court be accepting this documentation when there seems to be that no tests have been carried out to prove that there is dementia?
Yep, great question.
Well, Freddie, you and Sharrell are exposing a dark secret in the California probate system. So I just want you guys to understand that. I've been personally involved in many cases with very famous rich people where it turns out that their estate planning was not honored. And that's because in a case like this, you have a doctor that's appointed by the court, and these people get, honestly, very little money for the type of professionals that they would if they were doing full-time work in the private sector. And they do a check-the-box evaluation with no actual physical diagnostic tests. Most of it is relied on what's called self-reporting of the conservatee. So the guy basically interviews Mr. Girardi, looks around, does a check the box, and basically comes to a diagnosis. And the judge doesn't really care because it's a temporary conservator, and the other side, of course, has no access to Girardi. There's no independent medical exam, so they have no evidence. So the judge is like, look, I'm going to find that there's nothing wrong with the temporary conservator. I got his brother, because this never happens. A rich lawyer never wants anybody controlling their money and living in the kitchen in a house by themselves and having his daughter bring them food. But again, this is a much better alternative than going to jail in Chicago because he took $2 million. So it was an ingenious move to try to change the narrative. And his brother probably could believe that he's suffering from some dementia, but the judge was definitely swayed to allow the temporary conservator. And Girardi is winning in that court because this judge, most of the time, I mean, people don't fake conservatorships. Like who would want a conservator? I mean, you've worked your whole life. Girardi loves to tell people he's the attorney of the decade. Every declaration I post, when he cites it in court, he used to tell people he's the attorney of the decade, you know, the humanitarian of the year. So the champion of justice. So the thing is that in this particular case, he's made himself completely resign from the bar because of his conservatorship. He's basically sitting there getting direction from his brother's court-appointed a lawyer and a court-appointed conservator, and it's embarrassing. But he doesn't care at this point because it's the better of two evils. So the judge is thinking in his head, well, I mean, why not? I mean, why would anybody want to do this? Not appreciating the criminal exposure. And the judge in the probate court doesn't know anything about all this. He's just looking, okay, I got an uncontested, basically, conservatorship from the guy's brother. I'm going to appoint a temporary conservator. So that's what's going on there.
Would it be a good description to say almost that Girardi's like a brilliant crook? Because that's like smart, but in the wrong way.
Well, I mean, he never ceases to amaze me. Last night, his trustee said he lent the law firm $51 million. Okay, let me just tell you, I've been a lawyer almost 30 years. If my firm needed to borrow $100,000, I would start getting worried. Okay, I mean, why would you lend your firm $51 million? If you were smart enough to have $51 million, why would you be lending it to your firm? If your firm can't make any money on its own, it's time to retire. I mean, he wasn't 50, he was 80. So the whole thing makes no sense that he gave $51 million to his law firm and went down on a sinking ship. I mean, obviously he knows nothing about running a business, because the goal is not to get into debt like to this level. And it showed in the schedules that he sold $16 million of long-term gains. That means he had a bunch of assets and he sold them, and I'm presumably to keep financing the slide. So this reminds me of developers we go after that sign personal guarantees. We call them fools with a pen, and then they hug their projects like they're their best girlfriend or boyfriend, and they go down on the sinking ship, and the thing gets foreclosed on, and they have tremendous liability. So everything that he's done makes no sense. Every case he's on, he has to borrow money and finance the receivable. This seems like a horrible business model to me.
With that, and I guess we also had that thing with the paper accounting that he was doing, which I think we all know nowadays, it really isn't the best way. But with all the Girardi, I guess it makes sense that that's the method.
Yeah, the paper.
Well, I mean, look, for tablet, you wonder what's going on, paper, whatever pad. But I mean, yes, there's no lawyer I know that's credible that does their accounting without using an Excel, or that doesn't have a QuickBooks type program. I mean, it makes no sense. You're talking millions and millions of dollars. You're going to manage all that for all these. I mean, this is 2021. So I mean, once in a while, I still use experts, Freddie, that like to dictate their reports and have a secretary type it up. I mean, they're really good still, but I mean, I can count them on less than one hand, these type of old timers. I mean, it's really rare now to see, but accounting.
You can see that Tom Girardi, I guess, used this to benefit him, as what these trustees, I believe, have said is that they can't find where some of these funds have gone, and that they may never be able to find and understand the full extent of the years.
Well, the good news is the banks use computers and they can go claw back 7 years. I think that I'm not concerned about what he did 8 years ago, but I think that this is not like a cash business. I think that they will be able to see where the money went. These are two trustees that are working hard. I would say that Miller is working really hard. I actually use her firm for other matters. So they know it's a big case. They know every lawyer in town is looking at it. And they are really targeting the people that got money in the last 4 years, which may be other client money. And those are the transactions they're going to try to unravel. So that's why, I posted last night, if Erika Girardi really got 20 million, then they're going to unravel that and unwind it. However, like I said, just because a lawyer puts it in a complaint doesn't mean it happened. You need to really drill down and get some testimony. And so far, the only time Erika has appeared for the party is to try to keep the $600,000 exemption. That, by the way, was recently raised, Freddie. For years, it was 125. It was just this past year that the governor made LA County, places where properties are higher, they gave them a huge exemption, capping out at $600,000. So if you take that off the top, plus the debt that Girardi has on the property, I mean, this thing is not going to get them the money they're thinking of.
I agree.
I think I want to move on to that, because this is just becoming more prevalent. It is. So we've had Erika being silent throughout this whole case, And then suddenly she comes out of the woodwork and says, and essentially says, I want my $600,000 stake out of this house. I think to me, it seems likely that she probably won't be granted that based on the amount of money Tom has taken from both creditors and victims, and with Erika being associated with that, being on the company. How quick can we see the courts declining this request from Erika and her attorneys?
Well, again, I try not to be what's called granular, but some of these issues have so many nuances that you need to be accurate. She made a novel argument that because of the bankruptcy, she couldn't prosecute her divorce, so therefore she's still married, and therefore she's entitled to potential community property interest in the exemption. It's a convoluted argument because the house has been in Girardi's name since the 70s. And people are a little confused. The viewers sometimes write me, well, in California, once you get married, it all becomes community property. And that's not true. If you own something, no, that's a misnomer. If you own something before you're married, it stays yours. The spouse doesn't get a freebie, or if you use community property to finance the debt, then the community property gets some interest. But in case all Girardi did is pile on debt. And I don't think she wants to be responsible for half of that. But to answer your question, Freddie, the issue is simple. She needs to basically, she may win that claim for Girardi, not for her, in the sense that the judge may say, okay, I'm going to give the exemption, but you're not getting any of it. It's all going to go to Girardi because it's separate property. So I don't know. She may have just helped him in his estate, not her, but I think that she would only lose it if the judge found that she had no what's called standing to raise it because she doesn't own anything in the house. I'm almost positive that she signed what's called a quitclaim deed, releasing any interest in the house when he did the multiple refinancing. Otherwise, they would have never refinanced the house.
Interesting.
I mean, I think it has been suspicious over the years, in my opinion, how he's done that, how he's refinanced a lot of things to try and benefit himself. So what I wanted to go on to is obviously Erika's made this claim for money. We know that different attorneys from all the different cases Tom has, against him. When are we going to actually have these attorneys and the court step in and really properly go for Erika and find out what the deal is? Is she, what her true involvement is?
Well, the great news about her filing this claim is that she has now put herself before the jurisdiction of the court. So that was a great thing for everybody. There's a couple lawsuits against Erika, and now that she's appeared in the case, any creditor could file what's called a 2004 exam and really give Erika the equivalent of a colonoscopy in legal terms and really get into her inner tea, because she needs to really now come clean, and now she's put herself front and center. We may do it ourselves if no one else does it, because it's time to really get the story out. And even though I try to keep the comments and the reporting separate, sometimes if things are just stagnant, I may have to use some legal abilities to grease the wheel a little bit here. So I may encourage that. So we kind of got to get to we can't talk about this for the next 3 years. I think people want to know what's going on with her now, don't you?
Yeah,
I think we all do, because what a lot of people are questioning at the moment is how can she afford this house she's renting in Beverly Grove? How has she still got part of her glam squad working for her? How is she still driving a Range Rover and things like that when she really shouldn't be spending this type of money?
I agree. I mean, it's not like she said, look, since I got divorced or separated, I've made $400,000 and I'm paying rent and a car. So that's on me. But I'm going to give some of that to people that were victimized by my husband and I. And when anyone says, well, she may have not personally victimized it, I mean, they were married 20 years. I never heard any evidence that they never spoke in 20 years. I mean, if you're living in the house with someone and you understand their finances and you sign joint tax returns, to me, it's hard to believe that you didn't know anything about anything. I mean, you would see the loans, you would see the debt. And so, again, this willful blindness concept, sometimes you get into trouble because it's just the right thing to do. I mean, if she has some culpability here, again, there's a large difference between criminal culpability and just civil culpability. Civil culpability is 51% by a preponderance of the evidence. I haven't heard her present any defense that she has no civil culpability here at all. In fact, I will tell you one thing that is the most important thing about the Girardi schedules is that he lists out for pages and pages and pages, which I posted at my Twitter account at Ronald Richards, all of the debts that Erika is liable for, that he believes she's liable for. So there's no indication at all that they had separate anything while they were married.
Wow. Whew. Sorry, go ahead, Freddie. Wow, I'm shocked.
So I think that the good thing about that, it means that Erika can't really play this, I don't know what's happening, I wasn't sort of involved. So that card's it sounds like it's going to run out for her soon.
Well, yeah, she signed numerous quitclaims over the years. She had a property with him in Malibu. They had the property in Palm Springs. I mean, come on. Again, you're never going to have what's called no doubt. It's reasonable doubt or preponderance of the evidence. Most people, if they say, here's a document that you need to get notarized, is your position, well, I'm the only spouse in the history of spouses that didn't ask my husband, what's this for? I just blindly signed it. I put a handkerchief around my eyes and I'm not allowed to talk. I have a problem asking questions. Does Erika Girardi present herself to you guys as someone that's afraid to ask Tom Girardi a question? Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, I know a lot of people in marriages, if you give somebody a document and they got to go get a notary, they're going to ask you, what am I signing this for? What's it for? That's not an aggressive question. So you do this over and over again, and presumably you said, hey, I'm leveraging up the house. I need to borrow money for these cases. People are coming to the house serving them lawsuits. He's right. They're public lawsuits about salacious allegations. I posted last night about the law finance lawsuit. Girardi's threatening defamation from a lawsuit. I mean, and Erika's going to say, I didn't know about any of this. It's being reported everywhere. I mean, come on. Again, willful blindness is not a defense.
Or using your co-stars to try and defend you.
Yeah, well, that didn't out when they got involved with me, but I get it.
I'm lucky Dorit, Lemel, Kensley, whatever you call yourself.
Yeah, well, I moved on from her because we haven't heard anything. So once there's a stand down, I sort of move on. So I don't want to reopen old wounds.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I completely get that. You mentioned about trustee Alyssa Miller, and obviously there's been quite a lot going on with Boris Trezon, who, from what I understood, was basically trying to take Tom Girardi clients. What's happened in that potential contempt hearing with him?
Well, look, what happened is Boris, a lot of people that work for Girardi went over to Boris Trezon's firm, and some of these quote consultants, I'm not going to name names because I don't want to get a bunch of tweets this morning, but everyone knows who they are. The people that were getting paid and filed claims for breach of contracts. I still don't know what the contract was for, but, it was attorney's fees. Apparently we'll find out. But these, Boris was basically, he had Tom Girardi sign a ridiculous document that the court has now rejected about them taking over clients. And basically now the trustee's forced to get a restraining order, a permanent injunction against him, a preliminary injunction, because he's not been cooperative, according to her. Look, this is a competitive business. They saw an opening. I've known Boris going back to law school. I think he's a savvy lawyer, but now there's a bankruptcy. And what I do think that he misjudged is he initially represented himself. Now he has bankruptcy counsel. And let me just tell everyone this: if you represent yourself, you have a fool for a client. Okay. And bankruptcy is not your normal type of practice. These guys are used to doing mass tort litigation. They're not used to anybody telling them what to do. They're used to dealing with hundreds of people that are in grief-stricken issues, and most of their cases settle. Things are negotiated in mediations. They're not they're not nuts and bolts trial lawyers defending regular people all the time. These are more complex cases, and I think that Boris tried his best to defend the clients that went over, and the trustee is in her home turf. She knows how to one-up them, and I got to tell you, the judge is going to listen to the trustee more of the time than some lawyer that's being accused of diverting revenue and clients to his firm. You don't have a lot of sympathetic ears in that court. The judge is concerned about getting the assets for the estate for the benefit of the creditors, and he's really not a creditor to the extent that these other people are much more sympathetic creditors.
Quick question. So does that mean that Tom's law firm is officially closed?
Oh, yeah, it's impossible. By the way, this is the biggest joke of the year. What is Girardi and Keese? I've never seen a lawyer do $80 million of business, and they don't even have what's called a standalone corporate entity. All they had was apparently a fictitious business name that all these people lent millions of dollars on, and there's not even an entity that I could still verify is a separate entity. But this judge has ordered it to be a separate estate, and so that's why there's two trustees.
Wow. Go ahead, Freddie. Sorry.
It is incredible what's happening, and obviously you also reported, I think it was last week now, that he's now no longer part of the Hall of Fame, the Lawyers Hall of Fame, which I guess is the equivalent to the basketball player Hall of Fame, but for lawyers.
That's right. Yeah, the Consumer Association of Lawyers, the CAA, I posted it. They stripped him of his Hall of Fame status, and I got to tell you, that probably hurt him more than anything, because he loved to tell people he was in the Hall of Fame. I mean, that's why I posted a picture of Pete Rose. He's the most famous baseball player that ever got kicked out of the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And did that happen quicker than you expected, and attorneys in general in the United States expected? Well,
initially, lawyers are always afraid to go after other lawyers because they're worried about getting sued. When I have reported on crooked lawyers, I want to get sued because truth is a defense. So I'm not worried about a crooked lawyer being upset that I exposed him or her for being crooked. And so unless Girardi is going to take the position he's done everything correctly, I'm not losing sleep that anybody's going to bring a claim. But in this case, these organizations were slow, Freddie, not fast. They should have got rid of him quickly. But I guess they wanted to see the facts unfold. And now that he's, resigned from the bar due to his dementia, and no one's really contesting that there was funds diverted, they felt like they had to act to preserve their integrity. And now a lot of lawyers are coming out of the woodwork and saying, that he deserves this type of treatment.
And I think that's the type of thing that needs to be happened, because it seems that Tom for years used money, political influence to work things his own way and to, I guess, silence people into doing what he wanted. Do you think this is going to sort of revolutionize?
Oh gosh, the call dropped.
Oh,
that's interesting. This is going to be going on for a long time, isn't it, Freddie?
Yeah. I mean, it sure is. I mean, if you look at places like the New York Times, who have had law journalists reporting about it, we've seen that this is going to be going on for a long time.
Can you hear us, Ronald?
Yeah, we just had a temporary. So the question is, do I think the law journals are going to be reporting on it for a long time?
And do you think it will change the way how law firms will operate in keeping an eye out on people doing Tom Girardi, trying to take advantage? And I guess, as you've sort of mentioned before, his work sort of gives attorneys a bad name.
Well, yeah, I think law firms are going to institute new internal controls that would allow associates to report them and also be careful on how much they leverage and borrow their cases. I mean, I think that this litigation financing has gone out of control, and lawyers and doctors don't make the best business people. All right. And these lawyers gorge themselves on debt, hoping that they're going to settle a big case. But when you have a pandemic or a slowdown like we had here, there are no trials. And if there's no trials, the defendants have no motive to settle. That's why I always tell people it's a great time to be a defendant. There's no jurors. So all you have to do is request a jury trial and your case is delayed 3 years.
Wow.
So what is the leverage? There's no leverage to settle cases. So once there's no leverage to settle cases, then all of a sudden the sort of the settlement train stops. And that's what happened in this case. Once Girardi cases, it was like someone shut off the radio and the music stopped.
So I think we're all caught up. Is that the latest that's going on, Ronald?
I just wanted to ask two more things. I think so. One of the last sort of main question would be there was obviously a report filed with the probate court by Tom Girardi's appointed attorney, and it was mentioned that he was taking care of himself. Were questions raised about that implication?
Yeah, I thought it was astounding that for a guy that has this serious dementia, that he after his daughter brings him dinner, he's by himself every night. I mean, to me, it's almost criminal negligence to leave somebody that can't do anything. And by the way, I know people are going to say, oh, well, there's all types of dementia. Well, I know, but they're contending his dementia is excusing criminal culpability, and his dementia is excusing what he did, and he can't take care of himself. So why is he allowed to take care of himself from 6 at night to 6 in the morning?
Yeah, that's odd. What, the court's going to let him get away with that? I mean, what?
Well, no, I mean, it's not up to the court. It's up to the conservator and the party charged for taking care of himself. I mean, look, what if he forgets to turn the gas off? What happens if he forgets to turn the bathtub water off? Well, I mean, I could give you so many different examples why someone with dementia needs a helper. But in this case, the reason why it's suspect is because the people that know him best know he doesn't need a helper. Mm-hmm. So I'm just looking at the facts. Okay. Yeah. If you're going to walk the walk, you gotta do the part. So if he's going to say I have dementia, then that means he's got to have somebody there wiping his drool, changing his underwear, and helping him, remember to put on a shirt in the morning. And if he has moderate dementia, that's great, but that means he can't remember basic things. And I don't understand how he could be taking care of himself at night. And what is he doing all night? And then The other thing that was suspect about the report is that he has some guy from his office show up every day, and he's giving him direction. And then the house is very neat, so he knows how to tidy up. He knows how to communicate with the housekeeper. I mean, the whole thing is ridiculous, frankly. Yeah. I mean, I've dealt with elderly people that have dementia, and you don't leave them alone, period.
Yeah.
So, and the reason why, by the way, Freddie and Sharrell, the reason why he doesn't want to be left alone and why he doesn't want to do that is because the next place he lives is in assisted living. But why would he want to do that? Now, that's where the rubber meets the road, because he doesn't want to take his conservator defense and have to live in an assisted living home. Now, if he moved into an assisted living home, I'd be the first guy to say, I think he's telling the truth. But not when you live in a mansion in Pasadena and have catered meals and your housekeeper 5 days a week, but then at night you get to stay home and watch DirecTV, have a beer or a wine or scotch and hang out. To me, it's nonsense. But I will say, I want to tell everyone right now, the minute I see him move into the Pasadena assisted living home and he's on a floor with 10 other people with walkers, I am changing my opinion. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah. I mean,
I agree. I think we said this, Sharrell and I and the team of us here that have talked about this case for so long now have been saying this all along. Obviously, we're both very conscious about your time. I think the final thing that we wanted to ask is, what should we be expecting in the coming weeks?
Well, we need to get the schedules for Girardi and Keese, because that's going to clear up whether there was money really lent to Erika Girardi or EJ Global LLC. That's going to clear up any fraudulent conveyances. We're going to see if money was given to Lira or others. And if you'll notice on the schedules last night, on what we call the big ticket items, like was there any gifts or conveyances of large value, they put under financial review. So to me, it means that we still need those updated as well. We need amended schedules. So there's a lot going on in the couple weeks as far as documentation. And then we can expect what you guys are going to love, we're going to talk about a lot, is what's called, there's going to be a bunch of adversary complaints by the trustee, which means she's going to start suing everybody that got Girardi money without consideration. So anybody that got gifts, advances, fraudulent conveyances, money on bogus breach of contract claims, capper claims, anything she can unwind, she's going to go to town on to bring that back in the estate. And you're going to see lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit. And then we're going to have so much fun on this show talking about those targets. You're going to see a whole new group of people you guys don't even know yet.
And Ronald, I think what's going to be so funny about that is that's probably going to be in the time when season 13 of the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills season 12 is going to be back on. So she's going to really be in the spotlight for that stuff.
That's crazy.
Oh, it's going to be a lot of fun in the next few weeks. We're going to just have a lot to talk about. And she's going to, of course, I'm going to document everything she says on the show and see if it's scripted or see if it's legitimate. And we'll, of course, be able to talk about those live scenes. We'll snip them off the show and talk about them.
It's great. All right. Thank you so much, Ronald. I absolutely love talking to you. You really fill us in. And just what I like most about you coming on the show is that you break it down in layman's terms where everyone can understand, because sometimes lawyers' talks gets complicated. So at the end of the day, he feels like he's getting away with murder, but we've got a long time to go, right? How long do you think this lawsuit is going to be? Like years?
Well, the bankruptcy is going to last a while, but we're going to start seeing lawsuits come in the next couple months. And I would say by the end of the year, we're going to have a lot of money back in the estates, and you're going to see a lot of assets being sold. And the big day will come when I have a siren on my Twitter page where it shows the house is being sold, the Los Altos house. because
I've got notifications on that, so I'm keeping an eye on that.
Oh yeah, when that thing gets sold and Girardi has to move to the nursing home, then the rubber is going to hit the road. We'll see where he moves. I mean, look, the ball is in his court. I can't wait to see where he moves, because that's when the reality hits, when someone has to leave their house. I don't think he contemplated that they'd be selling his house so quickly.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. We know you're a busy man. I deeply, me and Freddie, appreciate you coming in. We do. Yeah. Giving us these updates. We appreciate it. So
it's my pleasure. You guys have a great format. You work great together. Freddie's questions are always so succinct and detailed and well-researched. It's really, a pleasure coming on, because you really get important information out, and it's much appreciated.
Well, thank you for coming on, because we always appreciate it, and I think we all find it very insightful, and it's important that we all know who these people are, what they're about, and that what we're seeing on TV isn't necessarily the real deal here.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, we won't keep you any longer.
Have a good day, you guys. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Great interview. Oh my gosh. I mean, I love it when he comes on. He just breaks it down. Freddie, do you think Tom will get away with this? Eventually?
I hope not. I mean, what's been clear is there's just been so much evidence saying that
much.
But as Ronald said, and as I've said in other videos, and journalists have said, is that this case is far from over. There's still so much work to do. There's still so much things that need to be uncovered in order to give justice to these victims.
We're so lucky. He's a brilliant attorney. I can't wait to, interview him one day. He's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. We're thankful that he comes on the show. Okay, you guys, I know it was very, very early, but we get him when we can get him. So he's a busy man. And so we're so thankful that he came in. I wanted to thank everyone for your super chats. You don't have to support the channel, but you do. So thank you very much from the bottom of our hearts. This was a great one. I just loved it. I love the way he talks in layman's terms.
So do I. I just love his honesty.
Yeah, you have to love it. Hopefully you understand why we had to go so early. We will be back in a couple hours, 10 o'clock Pacific, for the Real Housewives of New Jersey. Now that's going to be good, isn't it?
That is going to be good. I've seen it already, and it's been very, very good.
Also, I just wanted to publicly thank you, Freddie, for all your hard work behind the scenes, getting people like Ronald on the show, keeping us up to date on these cases. It's very tedious work. And so I just want to thank you. Thank you for being who you are. You're great. All right, Freddie, should we take a couple comments? No, they're already go. Okay, let's just say bye on 3. 1, 2, 3. Oh, did you want to say something?
No, I'll respond to the comments if there are any questions.
Oh, okay, great. That's great. Okay, you guys, if you have any comments or questions, leave them in the comment section. Freddie will respond to them, and we will see you guys in about a couple hours with the Real Housewives of New Jersey. Let's say bye on 3. 1, 2, 3. Bye, guys.
Bye.